Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. Yeah.
Listen, man, I know we go back quite a ways, but I'm really excited to catch up today. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, no doubt. I totally agree. I can't wait. I'm excited. I'm excited for you. I've listened to a bunch of the episodes of your podcast now, and I just love what you're doing for the community.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate that. And I feel like this is probably one of the most unique interviews that we'll have in this season of Remote Well, primarily because of the business that you've run and
Yeah.
also the business that you're building and moving forward. I think it's unique in the way that you've approached it. Folks have
Mm.
already heard a little bit about you kind of in the intro and in the bio, but I'd really love to just have you kind of in your own words, tell us about G&N Insurance. Why did you start the company and how have you built it that's, basically different because you're just crushing it?
Yeah, thank you. It's really interesting when I look back, like almost in like a once upon a time kind of mentality. Insurance was a different world in 2006 when I entered it. And I entered it in 22, just saying to myself, I'm going to start selling insurance because my girlfriend moved to Boston. That was kind of like the mentality. It's like, I need a job in Boston. The insurance agent sounds great. It was regulated. So what that means to the listeners that understand is the price is the price is the price is the price, no matter who sells it. So it was customer service based only. That's the only reason why you insure with somebody. 2008 came around, deregulated. Think Geico, Progressive, all these other companies who now come into Massachusetts. So all the insurance agents kind of had some chaos going on. And that's when I started to say to myself, well, selling one product probably isn't a good idea in a deregulated market. It sounds like a really tough battle. So I opened up my own shop with my business partner, Matt, and we were able to sell all products, but consumers weren't begging for all products. They were trying to figure out, like, solve a problem for me, and then I will insure with you. That was kind of the mentality. So we attached ourselves to the real estate industry and said, when you're purchasing real estate, we can be your go-to solve. And then we took off. And from 2010 to 2017, we grew by about 30 to 35% every year. And it was just steady, fast-paced, growth, but we solved a consumer problem, therefore we grew.
Amazing. Yeah, and just when it comes to like your peers kind of in the space or maybe other similar agencies of similar size, what would an average growth rate be? Just for those that are listening that might not know the behind the scenes.
2%. So the average growth rate of an insurance agency is 2%. Now, put this in the back of your head. If you insure with anybody, it doesn't matter who it is, your insurance premium is going to rise from 2 to 4% every single year. Now, I just told you that the average insurance agency grows by 2%. So in essence, they're just trying to, if they lose a Josh, add a Josh, lose a Josh, add a Josh. That's growth. That's incredible. That's not a growth mindset. So yes, Matt and I did solve a problem and therefore grew tremendously, but we also entered into an industry without a growth mindset and really just said, what could we do? What could we imagine? And it was
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So maybe you could walk us through then just some of the early days, like take me back to kind of the first day where you guys maybe had hire number one, or you're setting up shop in an office. What did it look like? What did it feel like? Who was that first hire for you guys?
Oh man. Great question. So the office that we were in is smaller than my home office that I'm sitting in now, which you might think I'm like a king, but the office I'm sitting in now is like 8 by 8. It's not big. So the very, very small in Natick. We picked Natick because I lived in Boston. Matt lived in Westboro. That was the middle. So didn't care about Natick. It was just pick a center. There's a gentleman named Peter who was working for another insurance agency in a couple floors down or a couple streets over. And he came in and he said, hey, I'm only making $10,000 a year. And it was his full-time job. And so we said to him, we're not planning on hiring anybody, but kind of feel bad. So we'll bring you on. You're a good dude. And he became our first hire. He was like our administrative assistant, turned into customer service representative, turned into sales representative. And then he's married down in North Carolina. He has a whole other career. But to fast forward, what did it look like in the first couple of years? It looked like, my door is shut. Do not talk to me. I am not going to manage you. If you work on our team, good luck. God bless you. I will see you on Fridays if you want to have a cocktail. Like, it was just like head down, sell.
Totally.
So I was not a manager or a leader by any stretch of the imagination in the first couple of years. Not even close.
Man,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think a lot of people can relate to that too, right? Because in the beginning, it's just you're barely trying to keep your head above water and keep the lights on and keep the
Yeah.
operations going. Never mind replicate yourself or pour into somebody else. So I think it's a common struggle. We've
Yeah.
all anybody who's started anything has come up against.
I agree. I mean, don't forget, like, I was 26. Like,
Right.
I cared about people, but not nearly as much as I care about them now. Like at 26, like I don't even know how many hours I worked. Like, I'm not going to give the whole sweat equity story. Everybody,
Sure.
did what we did. But I mean, for the first 13 months, we took no income on purpose. And we put all of the money back into the business. And therefore, we were able to hire 3 people quickly. That was a great decision. But the worst decision I made, if I were to look back, was to not invest in being a leader and a mentor and really kind of like growing as a person. I
Mhm.
was just really cutting my sword and getting better at selling, which didn't take me very far. It took me about as far as my basketball career. It's not very far.
Well, I can attest to your potential in that arena, your unrealized potential.
Big potential guy. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, so let me ask you this, Zach. So when did it switch for you? So when did you make that switch? And obviously hindsight's 2020. There's things
Sure.
that you do differently. But when did you start investing in people and really being more conscious about kind of investing in your team that way?
I know the exact time, actually. It was right around 2014 to 2015 in that transition era for 2 reasons, which is actually really interesting. One, my wife got pregnant, and it started to open up my eyes into like other things that were coming. And I didn't want to work. I don't mind working a ton of hours, but I'm not Elon Musk. Like I'm not going to work, that many hours. But I want to actually enjoy what I'm doing and not get home and then just spend a certain amount of time and then go back to what I'm, whatever. That part. The second thing that was really enlightening was we were almost $300,000 in debt in a $300,000 line of credit. Now, line of credit's not a big deal. Every business owner knows that. But when you're growing at the rate we were growing and you're maxing out your line of credit, something's wrong. Like you can't physically touch and feel it, but something is wrong. I didn't have the time to look at what was wrong because I was the reason we were growing, as with Matt. So we really had to take a step back and say growth matters, but I don't want to miss payroll. And so like I had to really figure it out. So we hired a coach, and that made all the difference. Yeah.
And so that coach, what was his focus? Was it on you guys as, business owners and kind of the administrative side, or was it like a sales coach? Like what kind of specialty did he
Yeah.
bring to the table?
It was a great question. It was a coach that focused on a system for entrepreneurs and how to run your business. And when you put that system in, you do whatever you want. Man, you work double the amount of hours if you want, but don't touch that department. Like don't go over there. Like
Right.
the way I look at it now is you're kind of an arsonist by being an entrepreneur, meaning you set fire to people that you don't even realize you do. So I had certain areas that I just wasn't going to touch. Forget it. I can't help you there. And that was one of the many, many, many takeaways. But since investing in him in 2015, thinking about it, I actually don't, outside of a marriage coach, which I don't have because KG's not down with that. I don't know if I have another thing in my life that I do not have a coach in, whether it be nutritionist, whether it be personal trainer, golf, you name it. I have coaching in everything now. And it all became from 2015.
100%, man. Yeah, I feel like my personal journey's been very similar. It's the moments where I've made an investment in myself that I've seen the biggest uptick or the inflection point in whatever it might be, whatever the area is, of coaching. And it's something that people neglect all the time is like, what investments are you making in yourself, whether that be education, whether that be outside training, whatever it might be. But no surprise.
Agreed.
So you guys, I've followed you. I know, just we're friends. Obviously we have a backstory, but I've also just noticed how great of a job you guys have done in building a brand. And a lot of that brand building has been kind of steeped in the culture that you guys have very carefully architected at G&N. So walk me through, I guess, what was important to you about building the team? Like what were some of the cultural values that you had or now still have? And how did that kind of bleed into the brand that is G&N?
Yeah, that was a really interesting theory because core values are what you are referring to, how we call them core values. Okay. And core values to most companies are a marketing exercise. Core values are not a marketing exercise. They're internally facing only. If you choose to externally face them, that's your own choice. But they're for who's on the team, who's off the team. So we treat our core values that way, meaning they're not me. Like my core values are not myself. And that's why we have a lot of great people, because we don't have 43 Zacks. 43 Zacks on G&N would be a bankrupt company. So we really looked at it and we said an easy way to create a core values in our perspective, you pick your best employee, not by production, but by who you could clone, okay? Who you would clone every single time. And it's not Sally or Michael who bring in cupcakes every Monday. Like it's literally the most productive combined with personality. And then you write down 15 or so character traits, keep, kill, combine those 15, get them to three core values. Once you have those 3 core values, you hire, you fire, and you promote based on those, and you're ruthless. And so one of our core values, again, is we have fun together. And that is pay for play in a lot of companies. I know it is. And when I say it out loud, if you don't know the internal structure at G&N, you're like, yeah, great core value. But what we literally have Champagne Fridays, where now they transform to Champagne Wednesdays, where at 2:00 we open a bottle of champagne. And it's not about drinking. It's just about, we're going to hang out and do a culture thing. That's it. Like, we're just going to hang out and we're going to learn more about XYZ. What doesn't matter. That is one of the many examples of we have fun, because it's just like we just turn off. Sometimes there's like a weird like courage exercise. Sometimes it's just, a recipe. It doesn't matter. Invest in having fun. Whereas the 2012 Zach would be like, let's go to a bar. And that's not living by the core values. That's saying I like drinking. Like, so we use champagne in the element of a toast of a group gathering to then incorporate in a fun activity. And so, sorry to go on and on, but there's one more point. We have fun is that if you, and I don't do interviews in my team, but the HR director who does interviews, if they were to, one of the questions is, hey, Josh, it's the weekend. What are you doing this weekend? And if you be like, nothing, like, well, this interview's over. Because you don't have fun. It's okay. Yeah. Like, you don't have to be going to the top of the hub in Boston, but you certainly should just tell somebody you're going to like a duck tour or something. Like, do something. Something has to be happening. So
I love that.
That's how we look at it. Yeah.
I love that, man. That's awesome. And I feel like, there's a real magic there to the ritual, right? Like the ritual of the toast, like in that case, right? It's just, there's nothing important in and of itself, like raising a glass, but it's the consistency and the showing up and the just repetition of embracing that value that yields the outcome. So it's brilliant.
We've probably had the most under $15 bottles of champagne in the last 5 years in Massachusetts, I would imagine.
Nice. Yeah. Maybe we can, you can share the brands, later on so that I can invest. Knowing that this value is so important to you guys.
Will do.
Brilliant, man. Well, hey, the reason why we're talking is obviously, we're diving into distributed teams. We're diving into remote culture and all the like. So up until this year, this was a completely co-located venture in Southborough, Massachusetts.
Yep.
And you guys built this foundation and this tremendous company that grew at a ridiculous rate, all in person. But you recently made a decision to adopt a distributed model. So I'd love for you, I really want to dissect this, but like maybe you can go into first, like the decision-making process. Like what led you to consider this in the first place? Maybe we can start there.
Yeah. So our system that I was referring to, which then we formed our second company, which we'll talk about another time or later on. We call it BobbleOn, and it's our own version of an entrepreneurial system of how to run your company. Now, the great thing for an entrepreneur is it really just frees up your time so you can focus on what matters most. Okay. It's relatively simple when you say it out loud, but as you delegate down and you elevate other people, you start to realize that you have time to focus on your visionary capabilities. And Matt and I had a lot of time to focus on, hey, how would you design the company? What matters most to G&N? And we realized our physical presence matters nothing. I mean, we share a wall. Our office, the physical location, shares a physical wall with State Farm, the number one largest insurance company in the world. Okay. So clearly our location doesn't matter, or else we wouldn't have picked there. So we have no walk-in traffic. And we started to say to ourselves, like, we were wondering. And the tipping point or the climactic moment came when our top producer, her name is Sarah, said, she's an inside sales representative, and she said, hey, I'm moving to Georgia. And we're like, whoa, okay, like, good luck. And she's like, no, I want to stay. I want to stay with you guys. I just don't know how we could do this. She gave us enough notice, and we started to dream around this idea that we already wanted to do. And it put on the fast track, and we said, okay, well, what are we missing? Like, what are we really missing here? The only thing we could really think of is culture. Culture is very difficult, as you likely know, most of your guests know, to maintain in a remote work environment. How do you maintain culture? So we spent a lot of time thinking on that. We developed our own system, which so far is working. And it took about 6 to 8 months to roll out for us to figure it out. But we already keep track of our employees, whether they're in the office or outside of the office, the exact same way. What's the difference? I mean, just because it hasn't been done by most insurance agencies doesn't mean you should do it. I mean, companies like yours and others are very successful. Why can't we do it? So we did it. And the last 2 months, we've had our most successful sales months in company history. So
amazing.
It worked.
Amazing.
It worked.
So to play that tape back thing, because I think this is really important. You were only ever able to even entertain this idea by getting space and margin in your day. And then when you had it, you were able to start architecting what this could look like, doing maybe some 80-20 on like what your, what matters to your business.
Yeah.
And location wasn't part of that. But then the fast tracking of a really important key team member potentially leaving, that fast track the whole thing.
You need, and I joked about Elon Musk working a gazillion hours, but even he talks about it, as well as anybody talk about Grant Cardone or whatever influencer you might follow, outside of maybe Gary Vaynerchuk. Every single person has free time, and they really use that time to think of problems that are existing in their life and not necessarily go straight to the solve, but just think of that problem and manifest it. And like, what does it feel like? What does it look like? How do I tinker with this? And the problem that we were really having about was time, like the physical time that we have 43 people, and 11 are in the Philippines now. So we have that going on. But so we have 30-ish people, and 9 of them had to leave at 4 o'clock to go get their kids for 5 o'clock. So we were missing an hour in the day already. And if you leave at 4, that means mentally you've left at 3:30. Like, you're gone. So we've lost a lot of time. That time wasn't being made up. That's okay. But what if they could just work on their own time? And I got to tell you, Josh, one of the biggest testimonials we have was we have an employee in Rhode Island. We rolled it out, and he was grateful, but he was also like, well, okay, we'll try it out. He came up to us a couple weeks after we rolled it out and said, hey, I have 2 boys. They're 6 and 4. I haven't had dinner with them in 3 years on a weekday.
Wow.
And he said, like, I have dinner with them every night now. And I mean, where else is that guy going to work? I mean, Can you imagine him walking up to his wife and be like, hey, I'm going to make $5,000 more. I won't see you for dinner again. Like, that doesn't, that's, what do you value in life? So I value that. That's where the 80-20 kind of came about. You were talking about thinking about the problems. How do I be home more? How do I do this? Well, if I only do it for myself, my team's going to be like, it's not going to work from a culture aspect. How do we design it across the board? We did it.
Amazing.
Yeah,
this is what you guys, the process that you went through is something that, sometimes are referred to as challenging the legend, right? And the legend being the way it always was. And you guys took it on full steam. It might have felt like a little bit of a risk. Maybe you could walk me through a little bit of like I know you said it was 6 to 8 months to roll it out. What were the main, as people are thinking about, maybe they're in a co-located space, they want to transition to something similar. what took the most in that time period? Were you planning logistics? Were you getting buy-in? Like, what were the main things that pushed it out to a 6 to 8 month, period?
Yeah, that's a great thing. I think whether you're in tech, insurance, doesn't matter. All of us are guilty of the same thing. You listen to a podcast, you go to a conference, you go back to your company, and you ruin it. I don't mean to swear.
Fine. You're fine. No, you're good.
You absolutely ruin your company. And I mean, like, every single time Josh goes on a trip, like, everybody knows he's going to come back and he's just going to be this guy who's like, we're going to try 17 kinds of smoke, right? And
Right.
so what we really wanted to do with this is just say, okay, this is a great idea. Let's test it with our leadership team. Let's go through it. And they had great objections. That one of them said, like, what are we going to do with the UPS guy? I was like, whoa. I didn't think about mail. It's the most basic. I'm just thinking about it from like a perspective of employee happiness and enjoying their jobs. But we broke that all down. And then our solve was, now we have a scorecard metric where, in short summary, Josh is most responsible for X. It is a number. If you don't do that every single week, you just don't have a job. Like, that's your biggest thing. But we can monitor that. We can monitor phone calls. Let's move all past that. Our big thing was home setup, meaning you have to take a physical picture of your work location on the first day with the laptop, monitor, and everything that we bought you set up in a location without kids and dogs and everything running around. If you have that, you got our trust, you're good to go. If you don't, we still have a physical location. It's almost like a WeWork. Just come on in. Like, come on. We have 2 to 5 people who still come every day. That's okay.
Amazing.
They claim that they don't want to work from home, and that's fine. Fine. Yeah.
I love that, because I mean, it kind of preempts my next question, which was, did you lose anybody along the way? Like, was this too much of a pruning process and people didn't? But it sounds like you just left the door wide open. People can pick and choose how they want to approach this.
Yeah, and maybe it's a little bit too laissez-faire, but how I look at it is, I know that there are a couple factors of why you work in a place, and people too often focus on the financial components of why you work at a place. And obviously that's part of your podcast, is you, of all people, understand autonomy. While it is only 20% probably of why you work somewhere, is probably more like 40%. Like, you really want the freedom to make decisions and work where you want to work. But too often the entrepreneur is like, oh, they're going to go to Miami and work from a beach. No, they're not. Like, people aren't like irresponsible. They're going to get their job done because they feel purpose, which is the other big thing. So we find if we focus tremendously on autonomy, tremendously on purpose, and then we work in culture, we're made.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So Zach, tell me a little bit about, like, what's the hiring process look like now? I know that there's some offshoring that you're doing. That's probably a different kind of stream and strategy altogether, but are you now kind of throwing off the geographical constraints of who you hire, or are you still focused kind of locally, but with this remote model?
Yeah. It's another good question. I'm not involved in the hiring process, which is probably why it's working. I am not involved in it for the reason that I believe I'm kind of an entrepreneur who roots for people and tries to, like, find the good when it actually might not be where I need it to be. And I'll ask questions that don't necessarily matter. Like, one of my favorite questions to ask just in a general meeting is, what's always in your fridge? Like, what always has to be there? And I find that like doesn't serve any value in a meeting. But like, that's where I go towards. I'm looking for personality. I'm looking for, will I fight with this person? If barbarians come over the hill, am I going to want to protect this person? Whereas my HR director is much more the culture guard. And so, to answer your question a little bit more directly, I don't think it matters what state you're in, but I know we probably prefer Massachusetts because we still like to meet with people weekly, if not monthly. And the person from Georgia comes up every 8 to 12 weeks, give or take.
Got it. So that is then an ongoing kind of ritual that you guys have not enforced, that's too strong of a word, but have promoted, it's a weekly gathering in the office?
Yeah, we try to do an all hands Wednesday. And for anybody who can, and we do an all hands Wednesday because we believe the weekly structured meeting was born in our company as in person. because our company, we've hired that way, in that we've hired people who actually can be direct with conflict. And sometimes via video, maybe that won't come off. In future ADMs of this company, maybe we won't have to. Maybe we'll use other channels like Slack and whatnot to get it done. But we believe that we believe in that weekly structured meeting, so everybody has that with their own teams on Wednesday. And so we are 80% remote, 20% in. I guess is better how to say it. Yeah.
Perfect.
But
Yeah.
I know on Wednesdays, like, I'm getting nothing done but meetings. That's it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think the truth is though too, it's like that, there's a lot of remote based companies that are probably salivating right now that you have the model that you have, is that the in-person meetup is always the most logistically intense thing to plan. And when you have that kind of proximity already, it simplifies that in a big way. So I think it's a great balance to have.
It does. And I would say, like, again, one of our core values is we have fun together. It's not we have fun. So we do have to, words matter, right? And that word to me, together, is in a circle, like we're doing things together. Like our annual company holiday party per se was at Escape the Room in Worcester. And like we did that with other things. Like that's kind of the definition of kind of like our company, like a little different. We don't necessarily need an open bar to have fun. We want to do things together and challenge each other, and awkwardness is kind of promoted, I guess you could say.
I love that, man. I love that. So I got to ask too, just, because you are so open with how you've communicated to the outside world, the changes that you're making in G&N, has there been any sort of reaction amongst your clients? Have they responded positively, negatively, neutral? Like, what's been the reception among your client base?
Yeah, that's a great point too. I'd say all of our clients, well over 90%, are brought on because we're solving their problem, which is, I'm purchasing real estate. I want the process to be very easy to insure my auto, home, and vehicle. I'm transferring different places. I want to have an umbrella policy and the like. Mm-hmm. We're not bringing on clients who are saying, I want to save the most money. We just so happen to save them money. It's almost like a function of the process. If you solve a problem and you're 10 times more expensive than the competitor, you're probably not going to win. So we've solved that problem. The problem we solved is not, we are the most convenient insurance agency in Southborough or in Boston. So therefore, to answer your question in a roundabout way, we have not had a consumer backlash. Our retention has gone up a little bit, but that's not a metric I really follow. What we did with this remote transfer, which sounds archaic, is we brought on a full-time phone receptionist. So we brought on a physical person to answer the phone remotely, but that way there's no phone queue. It literally goes to her. So we're feeling a little bit more homey on the phone, and we're not as present in person. It was almost like that yin and yang balance. And again, that's part of the leadership team group think. They're like, this would be a good idea.
It's awesome. It's an awesome investment. And you're right. It's kind of maybe compensates a little bit and gets you back to equilibrium.
Yeah, it does. And we tried. It was actually, talk about entrepreneurial, awful idea. We tried to offshore that to the Philippines, and it did not work. I had someone from the Philippines picking up the phone, and we'll leave it at that. It didn't work.
It's in the graveyard of once great ideas. Yeah.
Bad idea.
I mean, I want to underscore that though for a second. That's really important, just because that was a concern that we had when we were starting our business as well. Is like, will the clients care about our physical location? And it turns out, as long as you're delivering the results of your big promise, they don't. No, because they see you as a partner getting them where they want to go. And that's exactly what you guys are doing on the consumer side as well.
It just seems like if you're solving the problem that they came to you for, and you're trying to make yourselves better, it's almost like you getting into shape. It's like, are your friends going to be mad because you're not drinking Bud Heavies with them? Well, not really. Like, it doesn't really impact them. It's like, it's your own journey. Well, our journey was based on employee happiness. Therefore, we chose to be remote. Our clients are kind of like, whatever.
Cool.
They don't even like look at it. They don't even care. It doesn't. So that was right here. But then once we rolled it out, I was like, wait a minute. No one's asking. Like, no one cares. Like, it was almost a surprise.
Love it.
No one. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I definitely want to dig into this, Zach. So, based on your journey with GNN and the framework that you guys have created, or almost like the operating system that you've, deployed to grow that business, has now spun off into BobbleOn, its own separate business. So could you tell us a little bit about that? And then maybe
Yeah.
what lessons did you take with you from that first journey?
Yeah. I mean, the lesson I took is we started from remote. And so to your point, the system that transformed our company, and again, we went from $300,000 in debt 6 or 7 years in running the company to the very next 12 months being on the Inc. 5000 list. So it was like a really quick transfer. We then said to ourselves, okay, we're on to something here, but like anything, let's test it. So what we did was we gave it away for free without a name. We just said, hey, on private Facebook groups and what have you, we said, hey, we got this system. If any agencies want to like listen or hear about it, come on up to Boston. We'll teach it to you. And we did it so many times that our head was spinning. We're like, why are we doing it for free? What are we doing? And eventually a client from Maryland said, hey, listen, I don't want to come to Boston. I'll just pay for you to come down. And I made up a price that I thought was high. And she said, sure. When can you come? And I was like, oh, damn. So should have shot higher.
At least it was Miami though.
Yeah. So how we went about it was, we then formed the company and said, okay, we're going to be more serious about this. And now we have a team of 5, and they're all remote. We have one person works out of a WeWork in Boston, the rest work from home. But what we decided from the get was, which is different than GNN, is we decided that every person we're going to try to hire, we have to envision as potentially being a leader of a department. And that has really transformed our way of hiring, is that could this person lead? Like, they need to be an operator right now. They need to just do certain things, but does this person have leadership qualities that they could eventually have 10 people under them? And I would challenge to say that most people who are like that could probably work on the moon. It doesn't really matter where they work. So it even further, it says that they could be remote. And it's working very well so far.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you took your talents to South Beach. You got paid a high price for the service. That spawned, this could actually work. But you started building from ground zero in a remote model, and you're up to 5 people already, which is amazing.
Yeah, awesome. 5 people. We actually, we have 12. So it's workshops. So we, our theory with this company is, it's called BobbleOn, like we said. And our theory is that entrepreneurs are just working a ton of hours without really an end in sight. And they're spinning. They're having success, but it's just kind of frustrating. They're getting discouraged. Like, when is an end coming? And so we're hosting workshops at their business to help them unify their team and create accountability throughout their organization, so they have time to focus on what matters most. I'm basically trying to give them what I got. And to me, yes, it costs a certain amount of money to get there, to do our workshops. Probably do 3 to 6 workshops per year, and people hire us on and on. But man, I should charge $1 million a workshop for this, because the people that are receiving it can now do things like you're doing, like host a podcast based on a topic they're very interested in. Whereas before, they would be working 1 million hours just to kind of keep the lights on, and they wouldn't trust Sally or Mike in the back office. Now they can really focus on what matters most.
Man, the best value always comes from what you wish you had 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and you're given that shortcut,
Amen. I think totally. If I could rewind the clock today, I would be a much more voracious reader when I was 26. And I think that's probably a common answer. But right now, I have a goal to read 26 to 30 books a year. And that might be nothing to some people. Some people might read 100, but to me, that feels like 1 million. I feel like I'm reading every second because I have no time. But I don't know if I read a book from 26 to 29. I don't know if I did. I didn't.
Yeah.
No way.
I love it. No, it's good, man. It's everything our parents and teachers told us growing up. It just takes like 10 or 15 years for us to get it through our thick skulls. We should be doing it. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, I love to ask, my guests, just again, not from a predictive standpoint. I don't think anybody can really predict the future. So take that pressure off for a second. But as you think specifically, as you think about traditionally co-located businesses like insurance agencies, what do you see this as a trend? Like 5, 10, 15 years? Answering no is totally on the table just because of where you are in the podcast. I'm not expecting a yes, but what do you see like the future of work look like in traditionally kind of co-located local focused businesses?
Yeah, this is typically a struggle of mine because I see entrepreneurs not incredibly focused on their team's happiness as much as their profit loss statements. And I think if they focus more on employee happiness, they'd have retention. And if they had better retention and they had better quality people working for them, people with jobs of purpose, the remote work just becomes like do you want to or do you not? I don't think it's a big issue. I think if you really want an office location, cool, that's fine. Like that I don't think that's neither here nor there. If Amazon wanted a hardwired store, they've tried it even with remote locations. Like it's okay. I do look in a crystal ball, like you just said, and see way more companies going remote. I think it's a smart idea. But I do not think it's a smart idea from a cost savings perspective. I think when you look at it just from a cost savings perspective, you got the wrong lens on. That is not why you go remote at all. You go towards it to create jobs with autonomy and purpose. If you look towards that, why wouldn't you do it?
Brilliant. Man, Zach, I just think that people are gonna get so much value out of this. It's just, again, it's unique. Like the remote model isn't so unique anymore, but applying it to a business like yours is unique. And I really feel like you're one of the first to pioneer something like this. So
yeah, thank you.
You heard it here first, right? No.
yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I hope more people do. When you brought up your podcast, I was excited to listen because I personally didn't really understand. And I listened, and I was like, wow, like a lot of really clever ideas. And when I was listening to your podcast, I was like, wow, there's a lot of people who use these technologies to really advance the remote working experience. And it's amazing. But what I would say to your listeners who are this far into the podcast, you don't have to be techie to be remote.
That's right.
You just have to really want to run an organization that thrives off autonomy. That's it. And
That's
then
it, man.
You can figure out other stuff. You can hire a CTO if you want. You can figure all that out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So listen, I'm sure people are going to want to follow on both BobbleOn and also kind of how this transition, continues to pan out for you guys. Where can people find you? Where can people follow you and engage online?
Yeah, thanks. We have Instagram is pretty typical for most people. It's G&N Insurance, and our BobbleOn. I get asked this all the time. It's BobbleOn, BobbleOn, and you can just go BobbleOn.com or find it anywhere. But we're having a blast. We're having a ton of fun, and it's going to show. And I think this transition to remote is going to be a boomerang effect that it feels great now. I can't wait to see what it feels like in 4 or 5 years, because to your point, why can't you work from Europe? I don't know. Why not? Why not? So it'll be interesting. Yeah.
Zack Gould, man, thank you so much for coming on, sharing. I know time is really valuable, and appreciate you spending some with us. I'll definitely link out to those social handles in the notes, and best, man.
Awesome.